Yes, great. Welcome to the panel. We've been all had to work in different ways. We've been locked in at home. That's why we're doing it like this. And we've had to, we've been ripped off from our intranets, all the tools that we usually have access to in the workplace. And I thought, it's a great time to bring in a panel of people who are building online tools that help team members, employees, staff do more, in a remote setting. So it's about empowering everybody to work better. So here we're going to be moving on to the panel. So I have the great privilege of having, some great people to come in and chat to us. And the first person is John Hill from Sheetless.
Thanks, Jeff. Yeah, so I'm John Hill, co-founder and CEO of Sheetless. I'm a former Bank of England economist. I worked on policy reform following the kind of the last big global crisis, the financial crisis of 2007-2008. I published research on stress testing complex systems. I have postgraduate degrees in both finance and computer science. And since 2019, I've been building Sheetless, where we are building a no-code simulation platform to allow any analyst to perform better forecasts, better what-if analysis, and do better scenario planning.
Great. And next we'll have Anita Schjøll from Iris.ai.
Hi, everyone. Thank you. My name is Anita Schjøll Brede, CEO and co-founder of Iris.ai. I have a background in a variety of different startups, haven't had an office since 2009. We'll get back into that. And Iris.ai is an AI engine for scientific text understanding, and we've deployed it both in the academic field, where we built some literature review tools for academics and researchers, and where we're now moving into the chemical industry to industry researchers to build some really neat tools to leverage all the knowledge we have in the world in a holistic way. Let's call it that.
Great, thank you, Anita. And next we have Alexandra Turner, or Lexi, as she likes to be called, from Synthesized.
Hi, I'm Lexi Turner, and I've just joined Synthesized as Strategic Marketing Manager, but I've been working with tools that help data be better used for about 10 years. Synthesized is a all-in-one data process automation platform that allows scientists and developers to use high-quality synthetic data securely and quickly to prototype new models and enables collaboration.
Great, thank you. We have the panel together. So I guess, these are pretty much unprecedented times, and, we've had to find absolutely new ways of working. We've been thrown lots of challenges, and I guess, one thing that's on all of our minds at the moment is uncertainty. So how do we deal with these uncertain times? And I've spoken to some of you before, but maybe the first question I'll throw to, any of you is, how are people dealing with that uncertainty? And maybe how can the new tools that we're all building, AI, big data, security, how can that all help us in these difficult times?
I'll jump in first. I think human beings are terrible at dealing with uncertainty. And the moment something, that thing that was uncertain falls into place, it is the most natural thing in the whole world, and it's never been different. And I'm very fascinated by our human brains in that regards. I think uncertainty is terrible for us, but I think we're also really good at adapting once sort of something that was uncertain is the new normal. So I'm both concerned, but also I think we're good. We're fine.
I guess one aspect as well is, when we are in the same offices together, we have the team to rely on. We could all go into the same room, brainstorm, find, solutions to problems. But I guess when we're now all working from home, we're all isolated. Maybe the question I'll ask is, how can, the tools of Iris.ai, but also Sheetless, how can those empower us to maybe model the world better, or be more aware of how things are unfolding, and maybe communicating that to the rest of the team so we're all on the same page and we can tackle the big problems together?
Yeah, I think there's clearly a really important role for analytics and for modeling in acting as a kind of a single source of truth, a means by which a large number of people working remotely can articulate a shared understanding of the way something works, be that a business process or be that a view about the world. So I think there's a really important social role that kind of data analytics and modeling tools have to play. And I think the aspect of that which this highlights to me and kind of, you know, my background and my experience is the role that uncertainty plays in that modeling process and that data analytics process. So rather than, you know, predictions and thinking about single future paths and a single view of the future, trying to think more holistically about, as we move forwards into an uncertain future, how might that play out, and what are the different decisions that we might need to take under those different scenarios?
I totally agree. I think anything that sort of allows people to collaborate to develop those models or to do them more rapidly, so we have certainty about the uncertainty and the potential different outcomes, has become really important for people. That's something we're definitely seeing as well.
Great. And can I maybe ask John again? You know, we have lots of tools that are out there by the big vendors like, you know, Power BI, Tableau, and so on. Can you tell us a little bit about maybe what you see as, you know, short or limitations in these tools, and what's the next wave of analytics that are coming up, and how can that help us?
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. Great question. I think, you know, a lot of data analytics today, I think the last 10 years, people have been obsessed with getting their data sorted out and looking at it and understanding it. And that's provided a phenomenal amount of insight. There's lots of amazing things you can learn from historical data. I think one of the things that the current situation sheds light on is where the limitations of looking at past data and trying to infer things about the future from past data are. So we're living in a world now where the relationships in that past data have broken down. You know, we know that the world now doesn't look like it looked 6 months ago. We know that the next 6 months are unprecedented, and we're now kind of groping slightly blindly through the darkness, using that historical data, which we know not to be a representation of the future we're moving towards. So I think, you know, a lot of my work, my academic work and my career has been thinking about how do you deal with unexpected future scenarios in the tails of the distribution outside of, you know, BAU and the day-to-day. And I think the next wave of tools are going to have to help us deal better with the extreme scenarios, the black swans, the tails of the distribution, if you will.
Yeah.
And I guess certainly in these COVID times, we have to plan for the best, the worst, and also like the medium scenarios. And I guess that's where the challenge lay at the moment. Maybe moving on to another subject is, like, we're all hustlers, we're all talking to organizations big and small. Maybe it'd be good for the panel to share, you know, what are the frustrations that, you know, these organizations are having, like in having these new ways of working, that uncertainty, and what we're finding, you know, on the ground. Maybe we can start with Lexi.
I think we've definitely seen an uptick in tools that allow secure collaboration. People are frustrated. Data scientists who potentially have worked on premise or within their organization are now being asked to collaborate, but there is a real concern about safety and security. So there's an uptick in tools like ours that allow people, you know, an interest that allow people to do that easily. In terms of frustration, I think certainly in the UK, it's been quite clear that some businesses don't have a sort of mature remote infrastructure for data, and that's definitely taking an influence in how people are approaching their next steps.
Indeed, that must be a big, you know, touching on what you've been saying, that must be a big problem, because, you know, even when we are in the intranet, when there's all that security, when working with private sensitive data, and we know that there's been a hack recently as well, you know, and lots of personal details have been leaked, it's hard enough to work as data scientist, as machine learning, you know, specialist. Do you think data scientists and all these knowledge workers are finding it even harder to work from home, like on their laptop and the equipment they have access to?
Yeah, I think definitely, and I think there's an anxiety around that, both for the individual when they're looking at sort of their ethics of practice, but also for businesses. There's a big reputational risk. There are real fines that can happen. So I do think it's definitely something in the environment, and people want to know how you can solve that challenge for them when they speak to you.
Okay, great. Anybody else from the rest of the panel about frustrations at the moment of people you're talking to? Yeah.
I mean, we're talking a lot to kind of chemical industry R&D teams today, and I guess there's the next level challenge, which is access to an actual physical lab. That's even the next step up in terms of, sure, you have the security issues and all of that, but you also have to have your lab equipment there, and quite a few of our customers, you know, they will have some few people that are allowed to go into the lab, and suddenly like some people are allowed to go to the office, but not everyone, which also creates some weird dynamics. But I think there's every company has a different challenge, I think, related to having to work from home. But there's also plus sides of it, I think. But yeah.
I guess when you're working in a lab with you know, real experiments and machines and stuff like that, there's no replacement. So I know from some of other companies I'm talking to, they send one guy to the lab. So he's either the operations guy or he's the lab technician, and he's doing all the experiments. But maybe for the others who are stuck at home, like how do they work? How do they collaborate with those few people in the lab? Like, are there tools that allow them to access information better? Or maybe it's worth talking a little bit about, you know, the synthesized the Iris technology as well.
Yeah, I mean, in some ways, our tech is independent on whether or not people work from home. Really, what we do is replace very, very manual labor. But that manual labor, I guess, can be done from the room next to the lab or from home. So in that sense, it's less relevant where people work from. But essentially, we take all of the millions of research papers and patents that are out there, and we help find the right pieces of knowledge, whether it's on a very high level, as in doing a literature review of what's out there, dealing with unknown unknowns, whether it's more specific, where, you know, like, I know that the solution is out there somewhere, but I don't know what the words the researchers have used to express this. That might be, you know, I look for a new application area for one of my chemicals, or maybe a new synthesis procedure. So we know that someone must have written about it, but we don't know where. All the way down to the actual preparation for going into the lab, where you might want to extract all experiment data from your competitors' patents and see how they've tested their material, so you can go into the lab and test it yourself, which is totally doable for a human, but it just takes a heck of a lot of time. You know, we can do 2 months worth of manual labors in about 10 minutes at close to 90% accuracy, which is, you know, approximately or higher than a human accuracy. Humans aren't that good at dealing with numbers. So that's kind of what we're working on. So it really is about streamlining that process of navigating all of that information, which the interesting part I think we're seeing right now is, I mean, because in some way we've been working on streamlining information and gathering information long before COVID happened. And I think if anything, it's putting on the agenda that we need tools to help us assemble all of this information. Like, if we're not all in an office and can talk around the water cooler about the latest research paper we read or the latest business process someone is implementing, then how do we get that information? And I think that in general is a need that is coming more to the surface right now.
That's a good point. I guess, you know, one way of thinking about it is, what are the alternatives for people? You know, now that we're working from our laptops, do we go into Google and search for things? Are there other online tools that we can go to? What's the sense of, you know, of the choice that's available to knowledge workers?
I mean, there's so many different ways to approach finding the right knowledge, right? And we take one approach, you know, Google Scholar takes another. Like, there's so many ways, which I think personally is super exciting about the NLP field right now. There's so many different ways of solving the challenges of how do we find the right knowledge in this massive amount of data. So I think there's plenty of ways to go about that. People are used to a certain way of working in our field. They're used to keyword queries and putting in the details of what they're looking for. And we just go about it in a radically different way, working with full text project descriptions, etc. So it's just, you know, in some ways, you know, we present an entirely new, different way of working, still in the process of the research, or just a very different way of thinking about digital tools for it. And in the way, we need to see the shift in that, as we're seeing the shift in the big corporates right now, going from an office over to, okay, this is all digital. How the heck do we do it? And the promising thing is that we see that people are able to do that kind of shift. As I said earlier, we hate change, and the moment it's changed, we're fine. So it gives me hope that we can change some of the ways of going about R&D in the organizations we're targeting.
Cool, that's fascinating. And I guess, once we've used all these new AI tools to find about the subject matter, to find all the information that we need, and we've put them in the one place, maybe John can tell us a little bit about that. So once you have the data, once you have the information, what do you do next with it, right? How can we use that data and mine it and transform it? And how can we use that to, like make business decisions or, inform how the organization responds?
Yeah, well, I obviously could tell you a bit about kind of how we think about that at Sheetless and what we're working on. We think about there's lots of information about how things work, which resides in people's heads. As much as there's lots of information contained in data, there's still lots of know-how as well as data that's needed to accurately understand how things work. So at Sheetless, we take the approach of letting you combine in a framework, in a simulation modeling framework, the know-how about how things relate to one another, the structure of the model, if you will, and augmenting that with the real world data. So where there are key variables, key parameters, key bits of information that can be derived from data, then to build those into that framework too. Once you've done that, once you have a system which describes how the real system works, you can do some really, really interesting things, because you can generate data, and you can generate data which not only maybe is able to accurately recreate what the real data looks like, so generate useful data. You can also generate data under scenarios which haven't happened yet. And so when we talk about thinking about extreme scenarios, thinking about tail risk, thinking about scenario planning under COVID, think about what my worst and best case scenarios are. I think the only real way to do that is to accurately recreate the system that you're trying to study, and use that model of your system, that simulation of your system, to interrogate that system and try and answer some of those questions about how you think the future might play out. That's to me the way to answer some of these really, really difficult questions that lots of leaders are struggling with at the moment. Lots of strategic plans are being hastily rewritten. Lots of people are worried about the fragility of supply chains. And I think this approach of augmenting human knowledge with data, recreating our systems and subjecting them to experimentation and to decisions is the kind of the virtual laboratory for the social scientists that we've kind of all dreamed of. So that's what we're working on at Sheetless, and we're working with some corporates doing some really interesting sort of scenario planning and on the fly updating how they're thinking about the future right now.
That's indeed a very interesting approach to model and then do scenario planning. So, best, worst case, medium case. But I guess maybe one question would be, what kind of skill sets are required to be able to do that? I mean, we've been hearing about the no-code movement and so on.
Yeah, exactly. So historically, I was building simulation models 5 or 6 years ago, and it was all code-driven. So most people were advanced modelers. Simulation was reasonably widely used in very technical fields, engineering and process manufacturing and things like that. As you know, there's a big low code, no code movement right now. We're squarely a part of that. We're trying to enable simulation modeling for the everyday analyst, not a technical person, not a programmer, not a computer scientist. So it's drag and drop modeling. It's visual, it's easy to communicate. So what we're trying to do is democratize this analytical technique by using low no code as a kind of a device to empower that.
Okay, that's interesting because I guess when we're in the office, a business analyst can grab a data scientist, they can grab a data engineer, they can come together and do something, or even go into the whiteboard, because these things are usually complex processes that we're trying to model, right? And getting that shared understanding is usually quite hard. And I guess it's made even harder by having to do it by Zoom.
Yeah, and I think that's that's also really key. I think a lot of these models, scenario analytics, things that corporates want to do, you need a mix of skill sets. You need people to collaborate. So you might need data scientists who know where the data sits, and you might need business people or decision makers who are and maybe have a slightly more strategic understanding of the business problem itself. And so collaboration is always key. So, modeling is a social exercise. Historically, I mean, no one's yet replaced the whiteboard. I'm looking forward to the tool that comes out to replace the whiteboard.
Yeah.
We can probably all relate to that right now, trying to build products without whiteboards. But having an online tool, a web-based tool where multiple people can collaborate around models, can comment on them, can iterate on them together remotely is also really powerful.
Great. So we've been able to explore the domain landscape, the knowledge. With lots of tools, we've been able to model it. But I guess if we're dealing with very sensitive data, we touched a little bit upon that before. Alexandra, what are the alternatives, especially for data scientists and analysts working with sensitive data, and they're at home and they are concerned about security? What are the alternatives? Maybe talking a little bit about Synthesized, but the options on the marketplace about securing that data.
I think Synthesized helps in two ways. Because it's very high quality synthetic data, one issue that it solves is that idea of PII or any sort of traditional data masking techniques often can be reverse engineered. As this data is synthetic, it can't be. So it does allow that security, and our platform also allows you to share data sets within your organization and without them to enable collaboration. But going on to John's point a little bit about modeling and modeling for edge cases, the other thing that we can do is take a small or poor quality original data set and create a much bigger data set for you to use that will allow you to do better modeling faster to really get to those edge cases, because we are seeing that sometimes the existing data just isn't there, it isn't very accessible, or there just isn't the volume once it's been cleansed more traditionally. And that's where synthetic data can really accelerate these models and feed into the processes that the scientists are doing.
And I guess, apart from synthetic data, what other options are available at the moment?
Yeah, the other options, I mean, my previous organization was horrified to work with an unnamed customer who were literally spinning up cloud copies of their production data for each developer. So there are ways like that. And some of the other things, like I say, would be more traditional anonymization tools or masking tools, but they're not as secure. And what you can't do with those is create the high volume fast of data, which you can with synthetic data.
And are there any new challenges coming up with working with synthetic data? Are data scientists concerned about any aspects?
I think really for us, and you have to bear with me because I'm a marketing manager, so this is not my technical specialism, but it's really about the quality of that synthetic data. So it's really about being able to show them, create it quickly and show them how it's been created and show the accuracy and show the comparability to the original source so that they're confident that it's going to perform as well for them. And that is something that we do within our tools. So within the dashboard, you can get a lot of those metrics. So you have that reassurance.
Great. And moving a little bit away from, all the tools and all the technology, we're seeing, there's been a movement before COVID with, AI, big data, lots of tools happening. Do we think the current situation is hampering that movement of, empowering the knowledge worker, or do you think it's making them move, even faster? And I'm opening up to anybody in the room. I can see, Anita smiling there.
No, I'm like, who jumps on first with a yes or no answer, and then everyone else follows. No, I mean, I'm not concerned about that at all. I mean, yes, there is for larger corporates, there's going to be, I mean, I'm in some ways, my biggest concern is about a potential recession coming out of this, right? Like, how much money will there be for innovation, for new tools, for clients to invest in proof of concept collaborations or tools, et cetera. So that's kind of the biggest concern, I think, on my end. I don't think, I mean, if I look at, so our team has been remote since we started the company, and this is not at all affecting anyone's ability to continue the development. And I think we've also seen historically that there's no major kind of, we're not facing another AI winter because of COVID. I don't think that is going to happen at all. You know, most of us are perfectly happy sitting in front of our laptop and not talking to anyone anyway.
That's an interesting view. Does John or Alexi have any other views? Because we know that, you know, AI and the development work, the R&D that's required, needs a lot of capital to push that technology forward. And if there is an economic downturn, is that going to affect, you know, investments? Are we worried at all?
I think I totally understand that concern. I think the contrasting side to that would be that businesses, big corporates in particular, are looking at ways to get an edge. So they still are investing in innovation if that innovation clearly demonstrates a fast value return, or potentially if a solution can accelerate their existing investment. So I think where you can demonstrate ease of rollout or ease of shareability, those kind of things are more likely to be invested in because businesses are looking for ways that they can beat their competition and they can drive insight faster. So it's not necessarily all bad.
Yeah, I think it obviously it depends. I'm an economist, so my answer is always it depends, right? But it depends on whether this stimulates new thinking and people to, you know, the world changes. We're going, you know, digital transformation's been fast forwarded 5 years, and you know, change always brings opportunities for new methods and new tools. So that's probably on the plus side for adoption of AI and new tools. I think I probably share some of Anita's concerns around. There's certainly been a pause, I think, in a lot of corporate innovation and corporate spending. There's, I think, been a bit of a pause probably in maybe in fundraising and access to capital for startups and for people developing stuff too. And I think, you know, it will be, you know, I'd have thought there's at least 6 more months of uncertainty before we know kind of which one of those two factors outweighs the other one. I think, you know, the in the long run, it's an inexorable march forward for AI and data-driven methods, augmenting what knowledge workers do. But there's a speed bump in the road, and we'll see how much it slows things down.
I would say there's definitely going to be a move towards more kind of really well qualified proof of concepts rather than maybe the more traditional long procurement and big purchase across an organization. And anyone that can really assist a business with that and is really happy to play a part in that process is going to have be in a better position.
That's true, and that would be, I mean, if that turns out to be the case, that would be a super benefit for smaller companies to say, look, let's do something in 4 weeks, in 6 weeks, in 2 months, and see what we can pull together, because we're all sitting remotely, and it's not like we'll have you down to the office anyway. So let's do something quickly if we can get into that mode. But it also, I mean, I'm always a little concerned though when we talk about. I'm not going to say from a pure capitalist perspective, but from a pure like quick win perspective, I think there's a certain kind of challenges that we always end up solving, right? It's you know, stock markets and advertising, right? That is where we're seeing big breakthroughs, and I just think that would be a shame if that, you know, if it's only thing that gets us quick money back that we get to do projects within. That would be a bit of a bummer.
Great. And I guess we've been talking a lot about organizations and how technology can help them. I guess turning that look inwards and looking at our own teams, can you describe a little bit about how COVID has changed the way that we work, and also what tools you've been, you know, seeing that actually helps? And are they necessarily AI and big data, or are they like more normal tools as well?
Who's going first?
Who wants to go first? John?
I mean, you know, we were building a remote company before COVID happened. So in some sense, it's business as usual for us. I think, you know, startups have kind of been pioneering this way of working for some time. And fortunately, there are some great productivity tools that already exist for working remotely. I think there are certain aspects of building a startup, fundraising, and obviously sales that changed, that people were much more comfortable with handshakes and face-to-face interaction. And I think people are sort of working that one out at the moment, how far you can go through those processes, or how much of that you can do remotely. But I think it's inevitable that at least some more of that is going to become something that can be done remotely. There'll be less travel, hopefully less air travel involved in those kind of processes. And then my big item on my wish list for anyone wanting to start a company right now is an online whiteboarding tool, which works, and which would just be transformational. That's the one thing I think as a team we really miss, is being able to sit around and draw pictures and argue about stuff and discuss things.
I've been reviewing whiteboard tools for about 6 years. Like every 6 months, I'm like, there must be someone who have made it by now. And I'll go out and review what's out there, and it's all terrible. And then, why?
I was on a demo call the other day with a data scientist who actually had a whiteboard behind him in his front room, like a physical one he'd taken from his office. So, yeah.
I've had that in the past as well.
Yeah, and I guess, we have solutions like Captivo, that is like a camera you attach on top of your whiteboard and allows you to share that instantly. But I guess you can only have the one, and then there are tools like Miro and so on. But I guess, I think that the problem with these tools is that they're not integrated into the rest of the workflow. So they don't pull data from where it lives, whether it's in Trello, whether it's in Excel, and allows you to push it back out again. Mm-hmm. Yeah, somebody who invents that, and maybe we'll have a Founders Factory company that builds something along those lines. We can have a chat after this panel.
If anyone knows that company, I'd love to use that tool.
We've got a long line of customers already.
Great, and I guess Anita as well. You're probably different from John and Alexandra in that you were remote first.
Yeah. We have 4 co-founders. We were in 4 different countries when we started the company. So like we've never been in one location. It's always been totally remote. We'll get together, less frequently now than we have been in the past. But that is, it's been remote from the start, which means we've hired people wherever they are. We've had people who, at the job interview say, so I currently live in this country, but like there's this girl or guy in this other country and I don't know. And we're like, look, we'll hire you. You figure it out. Just let us know where to send your salary and where to pay your taxes. You're good to go. And that helps with hiring. We have kind of fully streamlined remote processes using Slack, Asana, Google Meet, Google Calendars, etc. So it's just like you end up with this quite streamlined process where, we will treat a meeting room the way we will treat an in-person meeting room, as in when the meeting is about to start, you pop in and you chit chat until the meeting gets going. And it's just like, it really doesn't feel like it deteriorates at all from having had an office space. We do have a couple of smaller office spaces where we actually have multiple people in a city. So we can be, social in the company as well. And then we get everyone together once or twice a year for more of a fun team retreat with hiking and horseback riding and gyoza making and whatnot. But, for us, that's never been different. And so we really didn't have any change of pace whatsoever with COVID. I mean, a couple of us have been stuck more at home than we usually are. I haven't left the country for 3 months, which I think it's like 6 or 7 years since the last time I was 3 months in one place. So it's probably 6 or 7 years since I was 1 month in one place. So that's changed. But besides that, like it's business as usual. And I think it's quite achievable, but no one being in the same place helps.
Right, I guess hiring is something that's always a big decision. Like bringing in the wrong team member can have like a big impact, especially on a startup. And I guess some companies like yourself are comfortable just doing interviews on Zoom and then hiring people straight away.
Yeah.
We've had other portfolio companies where the founders are wearing head visors and then doing interviews in the room with people in these times. And here, just turning to John and Lexi as well, it's like, which way do you think? And maybe, going back to the theme of the panel as well, are there any tools that you've tried to investigate? Because we know there are tools like HireVue with, facial analytics, tools that help make a decision? I don't know if you've looked at any of these, or maybe you, just getting your impression. So
personally, I've kind of been on the other end of it, I suppose, because this is the first time I've ever done a complete recruit and onboard remotely. As I say, I've been with Synthesized for 8 days, so everything's happened during lockdown. Speaking to the founders, and I think it's all gone really smoothly, and we're mostly using the same kind of tools that Anita mentioned to really cement our culture, but also having some nice social activities in there as well, like regular drop-in coffees and pub quizzes and all of that kind of thing, so that we can get to know each other a bit better. I'm not sure if they have used anything else, but I think video has been really key, and just the chance to speak to several different people in the company before joining meant that both they and I had a pretty good understanding of whether I'd fit in and what I could contribute. So,
okay, cool. And you've hired somebody recently as well, John, haven't you?
Yeah, so we've made 2 hires fully remote, as in we've never met them in real life, as it were. Two lockdown hires in the last 3 months or so. Just using video calls and interviews. We haven't delved in these fancy new tools. Sound fascinating. We haven't done any facial recognition to work out whether people. It sounds a bit sci-fi for me, but no, I mean we've found the process fine. I think we're just all getting more comfortable with video calls as a medium for interacting with people. So I spend a large portion of my day now on video calls, which has never been the case in my working life up to now. I've always been based in an office or flying into meetings and meet people face to face. But it seems like it works. People are happy with it. The people on the other end are the same people you're going to meet face to face anyhow. So yeah, it's we've got comfortable with it very quickly, and it just feels normal already.
Okay, cool. We are coming to the end of the panel. I'd love to to keep talking like that, and there's so many things we can touch. I'm probably going to give an unfair question to the panel now. It's the time to gaze into your crystal ball, look at, pre-COVID, how the world used to be, what's happened during COVID, and now with post-COVID, especially with the theme of AI and big data, do you think there's going to be any big changes, and what's the world to look like? Shall we start with Iris, with Anita?
So I'm hopeful, right? I'll start there. I'm an eternal optimist. So my hope is that especially, I mean, we sell into large companies, large corporations, right? So staying an optimist, I am hopeful that we're seeing a shift in the mindset of these corporations, where they see, well, we've done this way, and we've always done it this way, and here's our IT system, and here's our infrastructure, and this is how we buy services. Going from that mindset over to, oh, well, we were forced to try some new things. We were forced to adopt some new ways of working. Might there be and we enjoyed it, and we had fun, and we could work from home. And, to give an example, like, I don't think until COVID, I don't think I'd had a video call with any of our clients. We'd had calls, maybe like a video tool call, but without videos. And now I see face-to-face all of the clients we're working with, and they're happy to put on their video. That has shifted, right? So if that shift continues, and if that actually changes people's mindset to go, you know what, let's try something new. You know what, let's try this thing. Then I think we're going to see a world where we will have more rapid adoption of new technologies and new trials. Maybe, as you said, like shorter, quicker POCs that gets more to the point, just to try things out. Like, I am hopeful that might happen. I don't know if it will happen. I have my fears around it as well, right? The moment we go back to the office and the water cooler's there and the coffee maker, then, it's also really, really easy to go back to normal. So I'm hopeful that the attitude toward radical change has shifted and lifted when the corporations have been forced to do it. But it's a matter of attitude and culture. So the question is this culture shift going to be permanent, or is it a temporary thing that will then zoom back into oblivion?
Yeah, I think I share a lot of that. I think it's certainly an opportunity. Like, there's been a big pause button hit on a lot of corporate activity that I think maybe hasn't been, the corporate inertia kind of carries through lots of activities, lots of ways of doing things, lots of ways of working and interacting with startups is just one of those things. There's been a big pause button hit on all of that. So there's certainly an opportunity for a new status quo to emerge, a new normal post-COVID. I'm also an optimist by nature. So I'm also optimistic that this is going to be a wake-up call to corporates to do things, to do new things, to do things differently. I think from a philosophical point of view about data analytics and how people view data and understand their business, there's an opportunity here to think harder about uncertainty and the role that plays in planning and strategy, and how you can use that data and your analytics and your insight inside your organization to kind of map a better path, build more robust businesses which can weather storms, not just seas which are calm. So I'm optimistic for all of that. How much changes, again, I think we'll wait and see. I think there'll be a spectrum. I think some people will go almost completely back to normal, and some corporations will have changed forever.
Cool. And last we have Lexi.
I would agree. I think I'd like to be optimistic about the amount of change. I do think that some businesses, however, will return to their traditional patterns, but this event has meant that they really need to sort of have that flexibility with anything that they have changed to bring it back out again, or any new solution that they bring needs to be able to work in different modes, because it's been quite a shock to the system, and we've all been very much told that this isn't going to be the first event of its kind, that these events are accelerating. The other thing I think that's really going to change is that speed of decision making. So not only the importance of data-led decisions, but the importance of being able to do them quickly. I think business decision makers aren't happy to wait for their report back anymore, or to put in a change request for a different kind of view. Anything that enables self-service and that enables people to do things in real time or near real time is going to be prioritized, because that speed's just become so important in this changing time.
That's true. I think in these COVID times, you can't always use COVID as an excuse to say that's why your report is not available, or something else that can't be done.
And when the data's changing daily and the situation's changing daily, waiting a week isn't acceptable anymore.
Great. On that, I think we'll close the panel. Thank you for coming.
Want access to more CogX videos? Subscribe now for free at cogx.co.